Say the only solution. To be biblical, I said a third time, the only solution is Jesus. Everybody wants resurrection, to be delivered from a circumstance. Everybody wants a solution to their problems. Everybody wants peace, and everybody wants happiness. Everybody wants a stable life and a stable home. Everybody, the husband wants to be a good husband. He wants to be a good father. The mother wants to be a good mother and a wife. The child desires to be obedient. You want to be a good employer, a good employee. You want to be a good friend. You want to be a good co-worker. You want to be a good manager. You want to be a good student. And everybody want to be all those good things. But not many folk want the good master. They don't want Jesus. You're looking for answers in all the wrong places. And Jesus still says, come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. But we don't believe that. But we want him to fix it. But the sad reality is, I wonder if we really want to be fixed. We want the mechanic to solve our problems, but we don't want to go to the body shop. We got to go to him before he does anything. You're not going to find it at the end of the syringe. He's not there. You're not going to find it at the bottom of the bottle. He's not there. The last piece of food you eat because you're stressed, you're gluttoning, trying to find comfort in food, when you eat that last bone, you won't find him there. The only place you're going to find him is here. And when you find him here, he'll come here. And when you find him here, he comes here, he can then begin to activate. But until you come here, don't expect him to come near. Make sense? He'll fix it. He will fix it. But you got to want to go to the body shop. We're going to talk about the body shop today just a little bit. There's a solution. Other than my mother-in-law, I don't see any visitors. I guess she's not a visitor. She's been here several times, but everybody else seems to be homegrown. But good morning. James 4. Let's see if we can go to work for just a few minutes. We've been discussing our theme, Let Jesus Draw You in 2022. Let Jesus draw you in 2022. The lessons have been focused trying to help you better understand Jesus and why you need to draw closer to him. And seeing what he has accomplished in his person, it should stimulate in us a desire to be loyal to him. We've talked about Paul saying in Romans chapter 12 that he pleaded with the Romans that by God's mercies, I beg you by the mercies of God, that you present yourselves, your bodies, a living sacrifice, and you be transformed, and renewed in your mind. So, in other words, God has given through the person of Jesus a reason for you to give your body and your mind to him. And it's wrapped up in Calvary. And we've talked in brief about the anguish and the agony that he had to endure, not because he needed redemption, but because I did. And the only way that I could be redeemed if he did what he actually did. He had to endure the embarrassment and humility while at the same time being God who could have just spoke a word and eliminated everybody. But he was more concerned about saving me than upholding his reputation as God. Now, I want you to chew on that. He was more concerned with saving me than upholding his reputation as he walked through humanity. He's more concerned with saving me than saying, look who I am. It would be when he would be resurrected that he would say, you see who I am. The resurrection expresses his identity, but even the more it expresses his love for me. I can be resurrected because he was. I can be redeemed because he is my redeemer. He showed me that there is nothing too hard for him. And we oftentimes recognize that there is nothing too hard for him. That's not often the profession of that is not the difficulty. It's oftentimes it's too hard for me. And what is required for my resurrection, what is required for my redemption, what is required of my reconciliation, I often find to be difficult. This is why Jesus continually expressed at least twice, there are going to be few that enter into the narrow gate, because it is difficult. We've bought into a cheap Christianity. We've bought into a cheapened grace. And we've supposed that salvation requires very little effort on my part. And we've allowed ourselves to be deceived by the devil, who allows us or causes us to believe that as long as you act religious, you can be worldly. Just act religious on certain times, and you can still be worldly. All you got to do is go to church. Don't worry about changing. You can have church and the club. You can party and praise. You can be a whoremonger and holy. You can be a fornicator and faithful. That's what he tells us. Anybody believe that? Now, most people are not going to answer. In James 4, let's go. Let's go to work just for a few moments. James 4. James, before I read this, it appears that James is writing to a group we would actually call new converts. Between James and Galatians, it's argued which one was the earliest document written. The case is made for James because when you read James, if you read James carefully, not a lot is revealed that comes later regarding New Testament Christianity. I won't get into a lot. I don't want to spend my time with all of that. But when you read carefully the document, the audience seems to be heavy Jew that are fairly new to Christianity. Being fairly new to Christianity, when you consider the tone of James and you just listen carefully, he is very forthcoming with them. Very forthcoming. Because they have not yet recognized and understood the demands of the new identity. They don't understand. They have not welcomed the demands of the new identity. They are still in pursuit of things that they want to pursue. They are still saying, having been redeemed, having taken up on the new name, they're still of the mind that I'm going to go today and I'm going to go tomorrow and I'm going to gain. And James communicated to them in James chapter 4, we know this. Have you not considered your life? It is but a vapor that appears for a moment, then it vanishes away. He says in chapter 5 of James, verse 3, He says it's in the last days that you are making wealth or in the pursuit of wealth for yourself. In the last days, now we've talked about this before. The point being made is this. Acts chapter 17, verse 30 and 31. Don't go here. You don't have to go here. Just giving it to you. When Jesus was resurrected, that was the sign of the last days. In other words, when God got Jesus up from the grave, that indicated we are now in the last days. There is nothing else to expect other than his return to judge the ungodly and save the wicked eternally. There is nothing else to look forward to. There is no other Savior coming. There is no other remedy. Jesus is it. And so what he's communicating to new converts, people that have not yet embraced the walk of true Christianity, he has to communicate with them in a very forthcoming way about their pursuits. And in their pursuits, they are not pursuing Jesus. While at the same time, they believe they are. So in James 4, in James 4, he says these words. Let me get here. My Bible turned pages on me. He says, what causes, and I'm reading now from the ESV, what causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? Is it not this, that your passions or your lust are at war within you? There is something going on inside. And that's why there is the source of the wars and the source of the fights and the source of all of the animosity among you. Again, contextually, he's dealing with them and the issue going on with them. Here is new converts. Here are Church of Christ folk that are fighting internally. We don't do that in the church, do we? We don't have that problem, church folk, do we? And so the question is posed to them. I want to deal with the context, then I want to make the application. Where in the world do the fights come from that's going on in the midst of you, new convert Christians? Where does the seed of your lust reside? It resides in your members. It resides in you. You know why you fighting? You know why you quarreling? Because there is something in your mind. And just to give it in practical terms, any ungodly behavior is because of what's here. Any godly behavior is because of what's here. Let me hurry because I want to give you my topic. And I want to get to this. I want a few points. I got a few. Let's go. You desire and you do not have. You murder. You covet and cannot obtain. So you fight and quarrel. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly or amiss to spend it on your own passions. You adulterous people. Now I want you to get that. That's one of the main thoughts I want you to get. There's two thoughts I want you to get out of this text. Adulterous people and double-minded. He's going to say that later. Adulterous people. He calls double-minded people adulterers. He says to an adulterous people, you are double-minded. That's primarily the thought I want you to get today. Now, I'm going to read through this because I want you to see how he describes adultery. Everybody in here knows what adultery is. And what James is communicating is you and we can actually practice adultery spiritually. It may be the case that some of us right now are adulterers and do not realize it. I want to help us to see that today, what it means to be a spiritual adultery. I could probably argue, and I would not, but it's probably good to argue that spiritual adultery may be even worse than physical adultery. Because when it comes to physical adultery, I am committing adultery against my mate. But when it comes to spiritual adultery, who do you suppose we're unfaithful to? So I could probably argue that physical adultery is not as bad as spiritual adultery. See, I can be faithful to my wife and I can still be an adulterer. I want you to chew on that. Ask yourself, of course, am I a spiritual adulterer? You ask yourself that question. Is this me? Let's see. Let's see if any of us fit this description. Any of us fit this bill. So he says, do you not know? What is he going to do now? He's going to begin to describe what this adultery looks like. He says, watch the text. He says, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Watch it. Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. So that's how he begins to describe spiritual adultery. How? You trying to be a friend of the world and a friend of God. When you're trying to do both, God makes the decision. I'm your enemy. How does he describe spiritual adultery? You're trying to be a friend of the world and a friend of God. I just want you to chew on that for a moment. The spiritual adulterer is the one that wants to be worldly and godly. Again, you want to party and praise. You want a club and church. Let's chew on that. I want to pursue money and the master. When Jesus clearly said you cannot serve two masters. Cannot serve two masters. See, he goes on to describe them. Let me finish reading this. He says, or do you suppose that it is no purpose, the scripture says, he yearns jealously over the spirit that he made to dwell in us. Verse 6 says, but he gives more grace. Therefore it says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Be wretched and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will exalt you. Adulterers and double-minded. Here's what to be double-minded means. Double-minded means to have two souls. It's not that you have two, but you live as though you do. You're trying to satisfy dual natures and dual desires. You're actually trying to be, again, as we describe, be worldly and godly. This is the individual that has not made the decision that I am going to be loyal to the Lord and that alone. This individual wants to come to the assembly while at the same time having a bad attitude. That's the spiritual adulterer. This is the same one that wants God to always answer the prayers, while at the same time is the same one that's not worried about prayers that are in line with the will of God. I am asking prayers that's in line with my own lust. My prayers are never to satisfy the will of God. It is always to satisfy my own lust. For them, what was coming out of them was fighting, was wars, was quarreling among members because of what they had in their members. What was in their heart. See, the quarreling among them, they did not get from Christ. They got it from their own lust. We're going to go back to James chapter 1 in just a few moments, and we're going to tie some of this together. James, although everything James is communicating is linked together like a well-knit glove, he has a primary purpose and focus for directing this body of people in a very strong way. They are new converts, or rather, they are ignorant of the true identity that they have as Christians, and they still want to be worldly and godly at the same time. James says you are adulterers, you double-minded, you are unfaithful to God, and you are his enemies because you are not loyal and committed to one. You want to serve two. Remember, this is a theme that flows through the Bible. Joshua 24:15. Joshua 24:15. We know the text. I want you to get that for me, Brother Walker, please. Let's walk through these passages I gave you just for a few. Joshua 24, verse number 15. We know the passage where Joshua sets forth to Israel prior to his death and his departure, and he set forth a demand. You have to make a choice. Are you going to serve the gods on the other side of the river? Are you going to serve the gods of the pagans of the land in which you now dwell? Or are you going to serve Yahweh? You got three choices. Everybody got to make a choice. Who you going to serve? And my word doesn't mean anything if I don't do. See, this is where we get into James chapter 2. Faith without works is dead. No need of me saying, I believe what God says, but don't do what he tells me to do. James says that kind of faith is dead. James is not talking about doing services around the facility. He's talking about their righteous pursuit that he's communicating to them. So when he says, here is what Jesus says, or God says, or the gospel says, or the law says about righteousness, you say, I believe that, but I don't do that. It is through that vein we get James chapter 2, faith without works is dead. I believe I'm not supposed to be clubbing and churching. But I'm still going to club because God knows my heart. I believe I'm not supposed to be in the pursuit of things of this world, but how in the world am I going to live and eat? You got a problem with your faith. I believe what he says, but I'm not just sold on it yet. Double-minded, unstable, adulterer. That's the context of faith without works, because God says something for you and I to do, we are to do. I see it, but don't do it. See, you remember in James 1:21, he said the man that looks into the law and sees the impairments on his face and does nothing about them. He sees the impairments on his face. Most people know when they are not where they are supposed to be as a Christian. But every time they read that and see that, you know what they do? They walk away. I got enough, God. I don't need no more Bible study. Y'all study too much. You read too much. You talk about God too much. I ain't got time for that. I got other things to do. It's double-minded. You got the opportunity to study and learn about God with his people. But you don't want that. While at the same time, I'm saying I'm godly. James said, no, you're not. Because if you knew anything about godliness, when God's people are together, you should be there too. But see, all right, you know what? And God knows my heart. He does. Surely. Surely. I didn't give you my topic, did I? Loving two ain't good for you. That's my topic. Yeah, I like that. I kind of broke up all that tension in it. Because y'all sitting back there like, man, this dude about to lose his mind. I already made my decision. I ain't staying for Bible study anyway. And I don't care what he say. And that's on you. I've learned to let that go. That's on you. That's on you. I know I'm good. Okay. So I ain't talking about you. I'm just preaching. But Joshua said you need to make a choice. 1 Kings 18:21. 1 Kings 18:21, Elijah the prophet. Elijah came near to all the people and said, how long will you hesitate between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal, follow him. But the people did not answer him a word. What are you saying, Elijah? You need to make a decision as to who you're going to stay with. Who is he dealing with? He's dealing with the prophets of Baal there. He's dealing with Ahab and them in that particular context. And he poses an idea. He posed a thought. He posed a theology. He said, you need to make a choice. Everybody in here is in the valley of decision as we speak right now, whether you accept that reality or not. God still speaks and he still communicates. He's still coming back, and to humanity, his voice still communicates. You got to make a decision. Are you going to be worldly or are you going to be godly? Is it going to be me or is it going to be you? Is it going to be your lust or my law? Everybody got to make a decision. Jesus came on the scene, Matthew chapter 4 and verse number 4. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. What is he doing? He's not negating the need for food, but he's setting at the preeminent, at the forefront, the law of God. You need to be more concerned about eating the word than eating honey. I guarantee you everybody in here going to go get something to eat. Somebody going to Golden Corral, Chili's, or somebody. I guarantee you, after Brother Armstrong gets done, y'all going to eat. I can also guarantee you this right here. After the day, most people will not pick up a Bible. Guarantee you. You know why? Because you think the preacher's supposed to know all the Bible. You don't. He's supposed to know it, not me. That's his job. That's what we pay him for. Right? That's what you pay me for, right? To study and preach and teach and all that good stuff. But do you not know the same word that I study, that I teach and preach, is the only word that's going to save your soul? And it's not going to save you by me preaching it. It's going to save you by you living it. I don't think y'all heard that. My preaching it don't save you. Man, that was a great lesson. It's okay. It may be good. It may not be so good. It's okay. But my preaching it don't save you. Your living it does. Receive with meekness the engrafted word that is able to save your souls. Be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, that the anger of God does not work. The anger of man does not work the righteousness of God. What is he addressing? In their context, it's the anger. That's what's in your members. Anger may not be in mine, but I got something in mind. And whatever I got in mind, whatever is in my members that's keeping me an adulterer, or double-minded, or trying to love too, I got to get rid of it. See, the double-minded man, the two-souled man, the text said, is unstable in all his ways. You came to church, but you have no desire to be churched. See, we're going to take communion here in just a few moments. We're going to take it in a few moments. You know what communion going to mean to you today? The same thing it means to you tomorrow. Same thing. The same thing communion means to you today, it means the same thing tomorrow. Because I may come here and communicate the Passover, but I'm living Passover every day. Whatever it means to you today, it means the same thing to you tomorrow. If you hadn't already reflected on it before today, you're not going to reflect on it tomorrow. You're not going to even reflect on it today. You're just going to eat crackers and juice. That's all it means. It has no intimate value to you. You don't even know what it means. I say Passover, and we probably don't even know where to go to begin to talk about Passover. Don't even know the significance of it. But we saved, right? I mean, I'm going to heaven because I'm in the Church of Christ. That's a lie. You know why? Because we're in the Church of Christ, but we two-souled. We're trying to love too. And it ain't good to do. We adulterers, double-minded. I got one foot in the world. I don't even know if I got a foot in the church. I'm just here. James is dealing with this. Now, why are you bringing all of this up, brother? Why are we talking about this? This may be some hard stuff. I know it is. I know it is. It's hard for me too. Because Jesus demands a loyalty. And I'm sure he's tired of my mediocre Christianity. I can't speak for you. I'm sure he's tired of it. Brother Armstrong, when you going to make a choice that is going to be me and nobody else and nothing else? And my word doesn't mean anything if my word is not seen in action. James chapter 2, faith without works is dead. I believe it. Oh, man, I know I need it. Jesus said, man shall not live by bread alone. Matthew 6:24. You cannot serve God and mammon. Cannot. You cannot. You either accept what Jesus says or you don't. You cannot serve God and money. It's impossible. Cannot happen. It will not happen. Jesus says in Matthew chapter 26, and when in the context where we know this, because we love this verse, man, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Let's read that text. Then he said to them, my soul is grieved to the point of death. He says, remain here with me, keep watch. There's your verb. Keep watch. What does he tell? He says, be on guard. Don't miss that. Be on guard. What is you going to do, Jesus? Go ahead and read. Go ahead and go scroll. So watch with me. And he went a little beyond them and fell on his face and prayed, saying, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. What are you doing, Jesus? Yet not as I will, but as I will. What does he tell? What did he just tell at least James, Peter, and John to do? Stay on guard. Watch for me. What's going on? Judas has already made his journey to go get the authorities to come get Jesus. And Jesus knows it. He knows his time is short. But he wants to have at least one more encounter with the Father. He wants to have at least one more conversation with his Father. And he takes the three men that he's supposed to be able to trust with his life. One just told him, I go to death for you. I die with you. One just told him that. Lied through his teeth. He wasn't ready for it. Jesus said, be on guard. Watch for me. He came to the disciples and found them asleep. He came and found them asleep. Were they tired? Yeah, Jesus said they were tired. But you weak. And said so to Peter, so you men could not watch with me for an hour? I mean, I know you're tired. I am too. I'm about to go to the cross. Man, I got authorities about to come take me and lacerate my whole body. Put me on the cross for 6 hours. Crowns of thorns on my head. Nails penetrating my body. And I can't get you to stay awake for an hour to watch for me? You weak. A lot of Christians weak. Every time we feel a little pain and a little pull, want to quit on Jesus. Go to sleep. It hurt. It hurt. Pride eats us up. Arrogancy eats us up. Can't stay woke for an hour? See, it's in this context when he said the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. See, the spirit trying to pull you in the good way, but you keep falling back on your loins. You keep falling back on your flesh. That flesh, we talked about last week when in Luke 23, 22, when they were just screaming at Pilate, kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him. All them fleshly voices in his ear. Kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him. What did he do? He gave in. Knew he was wrong for doing it. Knew he was wrong. I find no fault in this man. Should have never sent him to be lacerated. Never. Let a thief go in his stead. All because he wanted to maintain popularity and prestige. How often do we sell Jesus out for our own name? Because we worried about being embarrassed toward humans. I don't care what you say about me, as long as Jesus blesses me. I don't mind being called holier than thou, because it's evident that I am holier than you. And I'm supposed to be holy. He said, oh, you got that? That's all you got, Jesus, man. That's all I got. My wife, every now and then, we sit around talking to people, and I just be quiet because I don't have a lot to say, man. And she said, y'all want to get in talking? Pull that Bible out. He started talking then. Man, I ain't worrying about your football game. That stuff don't bother me. I ain't studying about it. I don't care about all that. I don't care about fishing and hunting. None of that. I'm getting away from my dogs. I got 2 more, and when they die, we've already decided I ain't getting no more dogs. I ain't worried about all that stuff no more. Don't mean nothing to me. Nothing. Remember in Revelation 3, verse 16, when Jesus called them lukewarm? We talked about that briefly. I won't even go back over there because I want to hurry up. Why you lukewarm? Because you mixed. You got 2 waters mixed. You warm. You're trying to be godly and worldly. And see, what Jesus says about them, we looked at this text in Revelation 3, the church of Laodiceans. He said, you poor, blind, and wretched, and naked, and you don't even know it. You don't even know you unspiritual. Y'all know what they were doing? They weren't Sunday worship. They were there. They were there. How in the world are you going to describe people in the church who go to worship as filthy? That ain't right, is it? Man, you come to church, you good, right? I'm here. I'm here. With your chest stuck out. I'm here. Like you're doing God a favor. I mean, man, I'm sure God said, man, I sure thank you for your time today. I'm glad. Thank you. Appreciate it. I owe you one. Right? I owe you one. Man, hey, bro, I appreciate it. You came today. Let me drop a few dollars in your bank account because you were here. That's our mentality. So James says to them, where does the wars come from? It's in you. Remember James, let's go back to James 1 real quick. Let's tie a few more thoughts together and let's go with yours. Tie a few more thoughts. Let's go back to James 1. James 1. The text says in chapter 1, verse 5, but if any of you lacks wisdom, he says, let him ask of God. He's already communicated to them that you are going through trials and struggles. Not only are they going through trials and struggles, they are spiritually immature. And so, being spiritually immature, going through difficulties, he says, okay, here's what you do. While you're going through your difficulty, count it all joy. You need this. This is a value to you. See, what's going to happen if you persevere through this, it's good. You're going to be blessed. You're going to be strengthened. You're going to be fortified. Endure it. Go through it. Hey, if you need some wisdom, ask God. But here's what you don't need to do. Here's what you need to do. You need to ask with faith. When you ask God for guidance, whatever he tells you to do, you need to do that. That's it. But see, when you come to him and, you're not certain about what he's going to say, or you're not certain if he can even help, James says you don't even need to come to God. Because that type of person shouldn't expect to receive anything from God. You know why? Because he's two-souled. He's double-minded. That's what two-souled is, double-minded. He got divided loyalty. He don't trust me with everything in him. He either doesn't trust what I say or he doesn't trust me to be able to accomplish it. He's a spiritual adulterer. He's double-minded. And he's unstable in all his ways. All the ocean have to do is begin to rock. Lord, save me. Oh, you of little faith. You got Jesus laying in the bottom of the boat, sleep, and he feel the same storm you feel. Same storm. He feel it. As a matter of fact, you go check out Mark. He's sitting there at one occasion, just look at them roll. Just watching them. When are they going to learn to just settle down and just trust me. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know. But see, I got something in me that's fighting against me. My lust. My lust. My thoughts. See, lust is not always in the context of, we always think, when we hear lust, we think about sexual immorality. That's not always the case. Lust can be from attitude to unhealthy pursuits, ungodly relationships. Any of that can fit in the context of that which is bad for me. Any of that. Can I share something with you, man? Everybody ain't good to be in your circle. We've been looking at Psalm 119. I think it's around 57, 58. He says, I am a companion of them that fear you. In other words, my friends are those who actually reverence God. Remember, Jesus says that even of himself, when they say, Jesus, you know your mom out there, right? Your brothers also too. They knocking trying to get to you. I mean, that's mama. Mama knocking. You're the man. Y'all move, let mama in. Ain't what Jesus did. He looked at his disciples. You see, them that do the will of my Father, that's my family. Mama or no mama. So James said they're unstable. He goes on to say, next section, chapter 1, 12 through 15, he says, blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life. Let no one say when he's tempted, I am being tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, and he himself tempts no one. But he says, but each person is tempted when he's lured and enticed by his own desire. I want you to think about something. Then desire, it says, when it is conceived, it brings about sin. It births sin. And sin, when it is fully grown, it brings forth death. Chew with me for a minute. Think with me. Where is my lust? It's in my members. It's in my flesh. Now, I'm not talking about your skin. I'm talking about your old ingrained way of thinking, that nature that you have, that you wrestle with internally. The Spirit of God is trying to wrestle with your spirit that continues to want to do evil, that wants to go to sleep when Jesus said, watch. There's that wrestle internally, that wrestle inside that we all have to endure. That's why so many of us quit. Because my flesh has a stronger pull than the Spirit on me. Think about this. What if the Spirit had the pull on you that your flesh does? Think about how much better you and I would be. See, I don't mind bragging on my humanity and my weaknesses. But what if the Spirit has that kind of pull on me? I won't be giving in to my flesh. I won't be at all. See, just like I give in to my natural desires now, when they pull me, when the Spirit put those things to death, and see, I'm going here because over the next few weeks, I told you I wanted to stop by this lesson here for a moment, because we dealt with a lesson last week dealing with getting rid of the baggage. That stuff that keeps us encumbered or ensnared, keeping us from running the race effectively. At the foothills of that lesson, that stuff that we hold on to keeps us two-souled. It keeps us dual focused. It keeps us adulterous. Why? Because we hold on to it. But the only way I can prepare myself for the race and look to Jesus is when I get rid of baggage. Following these lessons, when we learn how to get rid of the baggage, I recognize what it at least means briefly to be two-souled, trying to love two. What we're going to do next is we're going to actually get to the power source, which is Spirit. And what I want to be clear is the Spirit don't have any power on you as long as you hold baggage, as long as you're two-souled. The Spirit can't pull you as long as you're holding on to the stuff that ensnares you. The Spirit cannot pull you as long as you are full of your lust. See, remember in James 4, we read that when he says he gives grace to the humble. He actually quotes Proverbs chapter 3 when the proverb writer begins by communicating, we know this, trust the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Proverbs 3:5, we know that one. See, it is through that vein that he further communicates. Trust the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path successful. But he doesn't give grace. Proverbs 3:34, he gives grace and favor to the humble. The grace and favor being communicated are those things God gives to me to help me grow and develop and succeed. That makes me righteous. That makes me more godly. He aids me when I come to the body shop. And he removes the evil from me when I humble myself in his sight. He doesn't give his gifts to people who will not surrender. When I look at my life and I recognize that I have not grown spiritually, it's because I have not humbled myself. God gives the gift of his glory, of his beauty, of all of the things essential to my development when I bow down. As long as I sit and I live in my pride and my arrogancy, James says, don't let that man think he's going to receive anything from God. Nothing. I'm the same way placed spiritually I was last year because I'm still full of my pride. I don't know any more Bible this year than I knew last year. It's because I'm still full of my pride. It's because I hadn't humbled. I'm still an adulterer. I'm still two-souled. I'm still trying to be worldly and godly. Because I don't understand the true nature of Christianity. I don't know what's connected to my identity. That's why James is very emphatic when he says, you spending your time right now pursuing riches, and it's the last days. You think you got time? Oh man, I'm young and I'm vibrant. Man, I'm only 19 years old. I'm 25. I'm 32. I'm 45. I'm 60. My mama lived to see 100. Think you got time? What is your life? It's a vapor. James says, I'll tell you where your temptations come from. They come from within you. Tell you where it all begins. It begins with you. Every time you pull, it's because you allowed the pull. But he says this right here. Now, when the tempter puts that seed, or rather gives that bait, see, what begins to happen is when your lust and the activity begin to have relations, you produce death. Every time I sin, my sin I produce a murderer that damages me and other folk. Every adulterer produces deadly babies. Y'all missed that. When my lust and activity come together to have a relationship, that's sin. I just produced a murderous child that's going to affect me and other folk as well. Imagine producing a baby that you know a serial killer. That's what James is saying. Every time you sin, you produce a serial killer. When lust is conceived, it bursts. It's in the text. It's how damaging sin is. It don't just affect you, it affects other folk. But he says, verse 16, do not be deceived. My beloved brothers, every good and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow of due to change. He says, of his own will brought us forth by the word of truth, that we should be a kind of creatures, a kind of first fruits of his creatures. He brought us forth. Here's what he does. He's playing on the same thought. Your lust produces offspring when it's acted out. Your lust produces offspring when it's acted out. He says, in contrast to that, here is what God did. He, in his divine will, determined to make a special kind of creatures. And what he has done with them individuals who he wants to be a special kind of creatures are first fruits of his creation. He put a seed in them. He put the seed of the word of God in them. And rather than them allowing their lust to be their motivator, the word should be their motivator. The more they listen to their lust, that other unfaithful individual, he becomes more ungodly. And he produces ungodly offspring. He's producing serial killers. He's producing murderers that's going to affect him and other folk. However, in God's divine will and sovereign purpose, he decided to make a special kind of first fruit. And what he did is he put the seed of the word of God in them, and the more they listen to that seed, the more they put to death that other soul. They become unified in their thought and in their focus. James said it was for this reason God developed this plan, so that he can make you a special type of people, not an ungodly sort. So when I go back to the book of Exodus and Leviticus, here is what I learned about the first fruit. I can go to Exodus 23 and 16 through 19. Exodus 23, drop down to verse number 19. I won't even read all of that. Exodus 23, 19, he says, go to the next slide on the other side. Not what I wanted. Here's what I wanted. That one that said. ESV said that's the best fruit. That's the best fruit. It's the King James said it's the choicest of fruit. What are you saying, James? God to you Christians, that are right now following your ungodly pursuits. You adulterers. You're trying to love too. And that ain't good to do. See, what you're trying to do is you're trying to be worldly and godly. God didn't call you for that purpose. So you got all this fighting going on in your midst. You know where it comes from? It comes from your members. That's where it comes from. All that lust that I do, it comes from within me. What do you say? What do you say? If you are a friend of the world, you cannot be a friend of God. You are an enemy of God. He says God gives grace to those who humble themselves in his sight. See, you have not done that because you are still allowing your lust to control you. God made you to be a special kind of creature. First fruit, the best. The best human should be the child of God. I should appear elevated. It's not because I elevate myself. I humble myself and he exalts me. The reason I look high is it's not because I climbed the ladder of success. I climbed upward to Jesus. I climbed upward to Jesus when I got down in humility. When I got down in humility, I climbed up to Jesus. He exalted me. He only exalts the humble. I can exalt myself, but I'd rather him do it. And so he communicates to them. Purify your hearts, you sinners. Clean your hands, you sinners. And purify your hearts, you double-minded. Let your laughter be turned into mourning. Be afflicted and weep. What are you saying, James? Go through the pain that you got to go through to stop being ungodly. That's what he meant. You need to shed some tears. You need to feel guilty. You need to hurt. You need to cry. You need to stop laughing. You need to. You need to know you messed up. So do I. But recognizing I messed up, recognizing I'm broken, shouldn't break me. Because he can resurrect me. He can fix it. But I got to stop being an adulterer. I got to stop being an adulterer. You want to serve your lust, but profess that you keep in his law. That's adultery. That's double-mindedness. That's unstable. Trying to love too ain't good to do. That makes sense. I'm done.